Chapter 11:15. At this time, the Richard family had no idea what they were doing, vomit and diarrhea so painful. Narcissus in daffodils is a very powerful and poisonous. If it is purified narcissus, then only a very small amount is needed, and it may be fatal. However, the content of this alkaloid in the daffodil itself is still relatively small, so eating too much will cause a very strong sign of food poisoning, but generally speaking, as long as you don't eat too much, it will not be desirable. Although it is unlikely to be fatal, the pain is definitely not something ordinary people can bear. It not only causes vomiting and diarrhea, but also fever, convulsions, and nervous system disorders. If it is eaten hard, it may also cause shock, and then life-threatening. Everyone in the Richard family ate a lot today, and it was indeed a bit dangerous. Even Alex didn't expect that the Richard family could eat so much. It is often reported in the news that some people mistake daffodils for leeks and were poisoned and hospitalized after eating them. This kind of thing is really easy to confuse. When 102 arrived, 3 of the 5 members of the Richard family had passed out. Only Harold and Olivia were barely conscious. But at this time, although they still have a weak consciousness, they can no longer control their bodies, so everyone's crotch is full of excrement. The living room was so stinky that no one could get in at all. A few 102 emergency doctors immediately turned around and vomited. 5 people vomited in diarrhea. This kind of smell is really very disheartening. But there was no way. It was important to save people. They still resisted the disgusting taste and rescued the 5 incontinent Richard family from the villa. The medical staff hurriedly rushed the Richard family to an ambulance and took them to Orris Hill People's Hospital. After a gastric lavage and infusion, the Richard family finally got some relief and temporarily recovered and was arranged to continue the infusion in the emergency ward. The Lady Richard and Lucy's beds were next to each other, and Miachel and others were in the innermost. At this time, everyone had an earthy face, a sickly look, and they couldn't beat any energy at all. A doctor wearing a mask came in and asked, "What did your family eat at night?" "We initially suspected that you should be food poisoned, so you have to think carefully about what you have eaten. We can also determine the scope. Reduce it a bit. If you can't find it's because of some poison, then we can't prescribe the right medicine." Lady Richard couldn't help muttering, "Our family didn't eat anything else at night, just a meal of dumplings." "Mom, there is definitely something wrong with this dumpling, otherwise we won't all be food poisoned." Lucy couldn't help but complain to Mrs. Richard. She knew that this was the case. What kind of dumplings she would eat with her? Isn't this asking for trouble? Mrs. Richard also felt that there was a problem with the dumplings at this time, but there seemed to be no problem in every aspect, so logically speaking, there should be no food poisoning. Thinking of this, the Lady Richard said, "We made the dumplings by ourselves. There is no problem of deterioration. What's wrong?" Harold on the side said bitterly, "Grandma, I heard that many unscrupulous merchants use poor quality pork as a good buy. Is there a problem with pork?"